Hello everyone, bringing you a video today talking about another British NBC suit, and what we have on the mannequin here is the Mark IV NBC suit in Desert DPM. As you can see, this suit in obviously the desert print is closely associated with the Gulf War, and there was a bit of a rush on to produce these in sufficient numbers for the forces deployed during the Gulf. The majority of second line forces, that is to say basically everyone other than infantry, had to by and large make do with the temperate DPM NBC suit, the same pattern but made in the temperate DPM print, that is to say green, brown, etc. These were provided to the infantry. They were in somewhat short supply, so they're quite an interesting bit of kit from that point of view, part of that sort of rush to produce desert kit for the British Army at that time. So the Mark IV is quite an advance over the Mark II, which we've looked at previously. We've jumped ahead a bit here. We will look at the Mark III at some point, but I thought it would be interesting to have a look at this and show during the course of the Cold War the advances that were made in the design of the NBC suit. So we'll have a look at this in its packaging first, both this and the trousers. We're going to be looking at the trousers as well. We'll have a look at both the smock and the trousers in their packaging first of all, and then we'll come back to the mannequin and talk about this in some detail. So we'll look at an example of the smock and an example of the trousers in the packaging now. If we lift this up here and get the glare off it, you can see Smock Protective NBC No. 1 Mark IV Desert, and you've got the NATO stock number at the top there. You can see various other details, including the manufacturer there, Remploy Limited, the contract number next to that, and then date packed, that's been stamped a little bit lower down, January 1991 there, as you can see. And then we have the fabric date over to the side here of February 1990. That's the date of manufacture of the fabric, and then the final packing date when this had been manufactured into a suit and then vacuum packed and packed in this outer plastic packaging, January 1991. If we look at the back here, you can perhaps see that a little bit more clearly. You've got the outer plastic packaging, which is this plastic bag, this heat sealed plastic bag, and within that the suit itself has been vacuum packed inside another plastic bag, and you can see it's been held down with rubber bands in the interim while that vacuum sealing process was taking place. So you've got the smock there. Put that to one side and bring the trousers in now. You can see those here. Trousers Protective NBC No. 1 Mark IV Desert. As you can see there, basically the same details as we had before. January 1991 the packing date, the same manufacturer and so forth. And then you have the fabric date on the side there, February 1990 again, as you can see. So turning this over again, you can see they're packed in exactly the same way. Rubber bands to hold them in place while they're being packed, vacuum packed and then sealed in this outer plastic packaging. So that's the smock and trousers in the original packaging. We'll talk about the smock in some more detail now. Obviously this is a great advance on the Mark II, which we've looked at previously on the channel. First of all, the Mark IV is produced in camouflage cloth, so you have both the temperate version which preceded this and then the Desert DPM version which we have here. The Mark III, the preceding design, had also been made in DPM print. Originally it was green, plain green, but they did make a camouflage version as well. But the Mark IV was basically produced as standard in camouflage. You do see some green examples as well, but I presume they're using up cloth. I'm not entirely sure on the reason for the Mark IV being produced in green, but you certainly see the majority of them produced in camouflage. And they were made in other camouflage finishes for different militaries as well, for foreign contracts. So we have the Desert DPM example on the mannequin here, as you can see. We have the integral hood at the top here. You see that has an elastic opening now around the face there, so that it would produce a better seal around the edge of the respirator. Big piece of Velcro here at the front, and this conceals a zip. So this now opens down the front, which is a big change from the preceding designs, which were over the head designs. So you have a zip all the way down the front there, underneath this Velcro flap, as you can see. We'll see more detail of that when we turn this inside out, of course. We have two breast pockets, as you can see here, and these are quite heavily constructed. They're not just made of the thin outer camouflage material, they are made of the thicker cloth which the suit is made from, so quite sturdy from that point of view. And obviously you've got this one here which is fully made in the DPM cloth. This one here, the pocket flap, is plain, and this basically serves as a place to write in information, details of the soldier. You can write in with a marker pen on here. Opening all the way down the front, as you can see, we still have the side adjustments here at the front. Well, they're kind of around the front, I guess, but we'll talk about them now. You have the male Velcro fastener there, which is this long piece here, the end just stitched over there, and then a wide section of the soft Velcro there, and that just allows you to adjust adjust this in around the hips there, as you can see. So that's the front of this. There's not a huge amount more to talk about, as you can see in advance on the preceding designs, I say both of which were over the head smocks. So having that front opening makes this a lot easier to put on. And we'll start moving this around now and talk about some of the other details as well. Looking at the right hand side of the mannequin here, I thought it might be a little bit easier to look at this breast pocket with it turned slightly round this way. It's a little bit oversized for the mannequin, so this is sort of drifting round under the arm here. But the chest pocket opens up like that. You've got two sections of touch and close here, the hooked sections up on the flap and the soft sections on the front of the pocket. It's made of the same material as the rest of the suit. That is to say, it's not just made of the outer camouflage material, it's made of the charcoal lined, the full thickness of the charcoal lined material, which means it's a lot stronger than those we've seen on the previous designs, the Mark II, which we've looked at previously, which just uses the outer covering material to form the pockets. That's not anywhere near as strong and durable as this, so a lot more practical from that point of view. It just closes down like that with the touch and close. Looking at the arm here, we have another pocket, and you have a dressing pocket here, interestingly. This is formed to take one of the joint services dressings, which were around at the time, and that closes with a single piece of touch and close there. So you have the hooked section there and the soft section on the front, and this is in line with the combat uniform in use at the time, of course. You'll notice the flap of this is not made of the camouflage material, it doesn't have the camouflage colouring material. That's to allow, or more easily allow, a piece of detector paper to be attached here. And we actually have patches of this around on the uniform as well, which we'll see in just a moment. So you can attach the pieces of detector paper, which were carried in a little booklet of these sticky back pieces of paper. And these, of course, react when they come into contact with different chemical agents and give a colour showing the chemical agent that's in the air. So you can attach a piece of that detector paper on here. You have another section where you can do that down on the arm as well. There's another patch sewn on there, which allows for the detector paper to be attached more easily. And then you have a wrist adjustment here. Again, you've got the section of hooked touch and close or Velcro fastener there, the end just doubled over to give you something to grip. And then you have the soft section round on the back there, and you can just adjust the cuff in like that, as you can see. Looking at the back of the smock here, there's not a huge amount more to see. If I just lift the hood up there, you can see the profile of the hood when fully unfolded. That might actually be out of the top of the frame, but got the hood there. And you can see the Desert DPM print, a good example of the Desert DPM print across the back of the smock there. And looking at the left-hand side of the smock now, we can see another arm pocket here. This one is just formed of the outer camouflage material. The flap isn't. The flap is a thicker material. But the pocket itself is just formed of the outer camouflage material, but it is just a pen pocket, as you can see here, with different sections. So just stitched in, as we've seen on the previous designs. It now has a pocket flap, and this again is formed of the grey cloth intended for the attachment of a piece of detector paper on there. So that's the arm pocket on this side, as a pen pocket, and further down on the arm we have another of those patches intended for the attachment of detector paper. So you've got that there, and the same cuff adjustment as we saw on the other side there. We'll have a look at the internal details of the smock now, and you can see the zip running down the front here, the lining material coming up around the hood there, and you can see the zip includes this inner flap which actually runs right up under the chin there, as you can see. So you have this inner flap as well behind the zip inside there, as you can see. This is all made of the charcoal lined cloth, of course, in line with the preceding designs. The zip itself, we have a look at that. Where's it gone? It's down the bottom here. The zip itself has this cotton tape tag on it to make it a little bit easier to manipulate when you're wearing gloves. So you've just got that addition on there. Otherwise it's a fairly light and flimsy zip. Of course, this is still really intended as disposable clothing. The idea is obviously these would get contaminated, then you'd throw them away. So they're not designed to be particularly long lasting. Nevertheless, it's quite well made. So stitching for the breast pockets there, as you can see, there's not a huge amount more to see around at the front here. Looking at the right hand side of the internals here, if I lift the hood up, you can see that that's fully lined with this grey or buff material, as you can see there. Not a huge amount more to see. There's no details of anything on the arm or anything there to talk about really. And again, at the back here, not a huge amount more to talk about, but if I lift the hood out of the way, we do have the label here, which we'll have a look at in detail now. You can see the designation of this here, Suit Protective NBC No. 1 Mark IV DPM Smock. Interestingly, it doesn't state Desert DPM, just DPM. NATO stock number beneath that, and then the NATO size. On the other side, you have further size details there, the manufacturer J. Compton & Son and Webb Limited, and then a place to write in the name and number underneath that. We'll take a look at the trousers from this suit now, and these haven't changed a huge amount in the way they're worn. There are some nice details, these strong, well-constructed pockets on the legs, and obviously we've got the pads again for attaching the detector paper here towards the knee. Up at the waist here, we're getting ahead of ourselves, the waist is fastened in exactly the same way as we've seen on the previous designs of NBC Suit. You have this section here at the front that folds over, and then a piece of Velcro or touch and close that fastens over there. Obviously the design of this is somewhat changed, simplified, but works in exactly the same manner to tighten in the waist. And you have the loops at the front here through which the braces loop over the shoulders and then just tie off through these to support the trousers. We lift these up here, turning them to the side. A better view of the leg pockets. There's a leg pocket here, and as you can see, there's one on the other side as well. If I unfold this properly. There we go. A bit awkward because these have been stored away. They're quite heavily creased and therefore don't like to unfold. Leg pocket there as well, as you can see. So you have a well-constructed leg pocket on each side. These close with touch and close, like the chest pockets, as you can see there. So you have two sections of touch and close on the legs, on the leg pocket flaps there. As already mentioned, you have the two points on the front of the trousers here where you can attach detector paper, as you can see. And then if we lift these up, you can see the legs again have the adjustment at the bottom, in common with previous designs of NBC Suit, just using the slightly modified version of touch and close here. Just a strip of the hook touch and close there with the end folded over to provide a grip. And then round on the back here we have two sections of wide, soft touch and close, the pile touch and close, so that these can be used to tighten in the bottom of the legs there. And you have those on both legs, as you can see, as would be expected. If we turn this round here, you can see the back of the trousers very plain, but we have the braces here, in common with previous designs, just stitched together in the center there. So in the middle of the back, they cross over, come over the shoulder and tie off to the loops on the front, which we've already seen. We'll turn these inside out now and have a look at the internal details. So looking at the inside of the trousers now, you can see the section at the top here where the waist doubles over to allow for that adjustment. You've got the inside where the loops on the front have been stitched on. The loops formed from this herringbone tape to allow the braces to be tied off. Obviously doubled over here gives a bit of extra strength to this attachment point for the braces. On each side you can see the stitching for the leg pockets there. There's not a huge amount more to see down below. The legs are otherwise very plain. Obviously you can see the black charcoal lining. This one's been worn a little bit at least. It's somewhat worn on the inside. The suits were better later on regards the charcoal flaking off and coating everything in dust. Still not great, they still do it, but they're not quite as bad as the earlier suits from that point of view. And as I say, it does appear these ones have been worn to a degree. These are not absolutely mint. So still in good condition, but this is what you've been to see on the inside when they've been worn for a while. You can see where the black charcoal lining is beginning to wear off, or hopefully you can. I'm not sure how well that'll show up in the contrast of the video. We turn this round now, we can see the braces attached at the rear. I get a handle on this. The braces attached at the rear there. Just loop those out of the way. We've already had a look at those. There's no more detail to see on the back here really, apart from the label, which is stitched into this doubled over layer of cloth in the center here. We'll have a look at this in close up now. And you can see here again, we have the designation Suit Protective NBC #1 Mark IV DPM trousers, and then the NATO stock code and the NATO sizing beneath that, and then the British sizing. And then you have the manufacturers, J. Compton & Son Webb, and then a place where you could write in your name and your number beneath that. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. The Mark IV, as I say, really quite a good design for what it is. Obviously NBC kit is much maligned for obvious reasons. It's not comfortable to wear, but for what it's trying to achieve, it's really quite a good design. It was well regarded abroad, and these were purchased by other countries, and also the US Marine Corps, I believe, made quite extensive use of these during the Gulf War, not in Desert DPM. As far as I'm aware, I believe the ones provided to the US Marine Corps were all the preceding green or temperate DPM versions. So just a run through this, have a look at all the details and everything. Hopefully it has been of interest. If you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you would like to support the channel, you can. Both Patreon and PayPal are linked down below. And as ever, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those two methods. It's greatly appreciated. As I always say, thank you all very much indeed. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. Facebook, Instagram and Twitter are all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down there as well. That's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.